Morgan, what the heck? It's Tuesday, and I have to see you again?
I know.
Friday not enough?
Especially on such a momentous weekend. We had Canada Day. We had Independence Day here yesterday. It's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, Nick, and hello to everyone joining us this morning. If you're here, drop a hey in chat. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, I feel like with this being all about the comments,
Oh,
I think we're going to have to live it up. So, if somebody's not here and you want them here, tag them.
tag them.
If there's something great today, tag them. They get the timeline so they know exactly where to go. Give them that little snippet of what you learned. But Morgan, I used to think that we were pretty good at comments on social.
Yeah, I thought I was okay. Like I know how to do it.
And then I heard about this guy that like booked over 80 in 1 month. So many. So many that his AEs actually told him to go away for a little while.
So we need to welcome everyone. Please welcome Evan, the one and only Evan Patterson.
And only
Evan Patterson to the B2B Power Hour. Hey, Evan.
Well, wow, for the hype. Holy crap. Hello.
We know how to hype up somebody. Welcome.
So the coffee needs to kick in. What's up?
Nick, do we have a question of the day? We like to kick it off around here with something casual, something fun. Oh no.
Your freak flag is flying.
Already. Yeah, that's what's happening. That's a symbol of my entire weekend, actually. Like, if that doesn't scream American independence, I don't know what does.
I got the question of the day.
All right, Nick.
Evan was my inspiration. So, what is your favorite way to celebrate Independence Day?
Oh.
I don't. I'm a queer man living in America, so no, I don't.
I understand that. Yeah. I would say when I was younger, I would go with my dad. My mom wasn't ever there, which is funny. I don't know if she just didn't like fireworks, but like there was a big park in my hometown. And so they had like, I don't know, a live orchestra and like a fireworks thing that went off. And that was always fun. That was nice. But then
can't relate.
It was also you also had to like, because it's America, so you also had to like dodge the drunk drivers on the way home. And that was always not great. So we always tried to leave soon after the show ended so that we could avoid the problems.
Get home in one piece. Yeah.
Basically. Nick, how do Canadians celebrate Canada Day?
With human rights.
Well, there's that.
Well, I do have the freedom to do whatever I want. So it is pretty nice.
We can't relate to you.
It's honestly Canada. It's usually like Canada 150 was really big, and they did a lot of really cool events. This year they didn't do as much. There's this thing called COVID, and it really like screwed with all of like the festivals and everything. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
No,
it's our mojo down
our
here.
Our politicians here acted like it didn't exist. So no.
You walk around my hometown, it sure doesn't. That's the. Anyways.
Yeah, we can't relate. Never heard of it. No.
Welcome, everyone.
It's almost as if like Nick knew I was going to have like a really dark response to this cheerful question.
So,
Evan, I don't know you that well.
In case you can't tell,
Helen Keller knows me that well. Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna have some fun today, everybody. So strap in.
So
it's
sorry.
gonna be so good.
Someone tag my mother.
Oh yeah. All right. So today we're talking about comments and booking meetings in the comments because Evan, you're ridiculous at this, and I mean that in an admiration way. Like, holy cow!
And an insulting way. It can be both.
It's only because he's jealous. It's not because
it's true. It's true.
I am
envious.
too. So like
how? So can you just give like a little background? What like role and position you were in at this company, and like what happened? Because like Nick gave like a little preview, but basically you were booking so many meetings that your AEs asked you to stop.
Yeah,
take a paid leave. Take a paid time off to like.
So this wasn't just at one company. I've been doing this strategy in one form or another since I started working in sales. So I've had this happen at multiple companies, actually.
Crazy. And I just want to know more. Like what?
Tell me more.
Yeah, just tell me more. So what is your all-time record in a month? Do you know that? Like,
well, so you got to keep in mind that like the definition of good in a quantitative context varies based on like industry. Yeah. So like 20 in one industry might be equivalent to 80 in another. So I don't want people thinking that like, oh, I can do 82. Like if the average is 5 in your industry, 80 is going to be a stretch, sweetie.
Yeah.
You know, so what my record, I think, I don't remember. I know it's between 80 and 90. Yeah. If I include my days working as an insurance agent, I was like, you were kind of like, we had to do outbound to get our own quotes done. At least before you had like a strong pipeline of like referrals. And I think the average person in my office was doing between 70 to 80, and I was doing about 150 to 160.
Wow. That's a significant jump.
And that's quotes. That's not policy sold. Don't get too impressed, y'all.
Oh yeah. It's but I feel like, and I'm sure you see this in your role and in previous companies you've been at, one of the things that outbound sales reps struggle with, whether they're an outbound SDR or they're just full cycle account executive, is not, I mean, yes, there's discovery problems and like actually navigating the sale, but there's so much content around that. It's like, oh, go find your favorite sales trainer to help you out here. The problem we hear a lot is actually booking the meeting, right? So those numbers are a testament to some sort of strategy you're using or mindset you're using to generate results.
The one that puts people out of work too.
Yeah.
A lot of people listen to this like, oh God, my job's in danger thanks to Evan. Good.
Yeah. Or maybe you just steal the things and like, you know, put it to
make
work.
yourself employable again. Yeah.
Ooh, hot take. So, Nick, where did you want to start this conversation? Because I feel like we have a lot of questions.
You're asking the man that asked me how I celebrate being an American to start the conversation.
Yes.
The Canadian.
So, kind of the most common thing I get asked, Evan, other than like, does social actually work? Or the second most common is, what if my audience isn't on LinkedIn? But we're going to pretend like everybody's on LinkedIn because lots are. So how do you do this without pitch slapping? How do you do this in a way that gets people excited so that you get a first meeting and you actually get a second? That there's not just a bunch of no-shows? Because I get a lot of reps like, yeah, I book meetings, and it's like, cool. How many are you getting? Like, well, I book, 20 or 30 and like 5 show up. So
yeah. The hard part, I think, that people don't really realize is there's only so much you can do to improve that no-show rate from how you actually ask for the meeting. But the one thing that I always focused on was how I got to the ask. It wasn't the ask itself, it was how I got to the ask. So that's where the whole concept of like postbound came in, where I just made sure that my ask made the most sense. That way it's kind of like, let's say you fell down and hurt your leg, and I said, here's some medicine, here's a Band-Aid, here's whatever, right? No one in their right mind says no. So I just found a bunch of people with broken legs.
Ooh, tell me more.
Yeah, like how
did we get here without like living on LinkedIn? Because that's the other thing I hear. Like, yeah, Nick, I would love to go and jump in the comments, but like, I have a bag to carry. Like, I can't go and get my commission and like do everything if I'm just on LinkedIn all day.
Yeah. I guess like the thing for me is it's obvious, but I guess it's not for everybody else. But I go find people that are on social media, and my ICP for the majority of my career has been on LinkedIn. So I would go and find posts that were about, let's say when I was at Reprise, we sold demo creation software. Okay. And I would go and find salespeople, that were complaining, in their posts about, demos not being sufficient. Or struggling to get better at it, or finding sales influencers that were talking about ways to make your demo better. And then I would go into the comment section and I would find people that matched their ICP based on their job titles or based on their company or both, that were talking like with some gusto, basically, in response to these posts. So if you were like a VP of sales saying, oh, these are some great tips, my team's struggling with X, Y, and Z also, I would then send you a connection request with a message saying, hey, I saw you commented on so-and-so's post about X, Y, and Z. Clearly you're struggling with A, B, and C. We're working on a product that solves all of that. Would love to know if that's worth looking at your time, because you obviously just said you want to solve this problem. No one says no to that. No one with an IQ larger than a shoe size says no to that. And I wear a 7.5, so the bar is very low. So it's all about like making it make sense. No one ever accused me of pitch slapping, because it was like I mentioned, it's like when you go to the doctor and you say, I don't feel good, you don't go, how dare you do the thing I asked you to do? Like, so like, don't complain if you don't want people offering you help. So,
Right.
so
Well, it's
right?
interesting what you point to as well, which is like, yeah, you have this base layer, and we hear this all the time, this base layer of targeting or qualification or whatever it is. They have the right job title, they work in an ICP account, but there's this additional layer you're looking for, which is like demonstrated need almost. And that's
Yeah.
in the comments. They're actually saying they need help, or they're articulating something. So like what
Yeah.
this is pretty technical and tactical, so like as deep as you want to go on this, like what were you actually looking for? Because not everybody just says, God, I need help with exactly what I sell. Like
Yeah.
that's going to be such a small drop in the pond.
I woke up in the middle of the
Yeah,
night and I
no
was
one
like,
was
just
going
need
on there.
software.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people were on LinkedIn saying, I wish I could create this, right? Like,
Right.
especially because you were selling something that was new, right? It's kind of like Henry Ford when he sold the first car. No one was saying, I need a car, because no one knew what cars were yet. So I always look back as to when I was an insurance agent. So everything we're talking about is common knowledge in insurance and financial services. It's taboo in B2B tech. So in insurance land, like when I'm trying to sell homeowners insurance, you just go and find people that are in the process of buying a home or getting a mortgage. You're trying to sell car insurance. You become best friends with car dealers and sales reps, and you go and find people that are shopping for cars, right? You go to a lot of auto shows. You get people boats. I used to go to boat shows. I don't sell boats. I sell boat insurance. And usually wealthy, affluent people, typically in my neighborhood, owned boats. So therefore, I knew that a lot of them are business owners. So I could sell them commercial insurance. And then business owners usually know a lot of people. So I was like, let me focus on events that attract affluent people, so I can then do the trickle down effect to all their employees and all their partners that they had as a business. So it's all about understanding how your product solves problems in their lives. And then even if that person's not aware those problems exist yet. So everybody who buys a boat needs insurance. Everybody who buys a house needs insurance. Everybody who buys a car needs insurance. Everybody who owns a business needs insurance. So I wasn't looking for people saying I need to solve these problems. I was looking for people that the next logical step is to solve this problem.
Why is it taboo in B2B? Because I come from B2C and I have the same sort of like, what the hell? Why aren't we connecting the dots here? Is it like, did you just connect these dots yourself over time? I'm just curious. Or was this like a company that trained you to connect these dots? Or like, is it just because like salespeople don't get this sort of training generally that we don't do this in B2B? Or I don't know.
I think it was just because it was so normal in the insurance industry to do this. Like, this is all everyone knew, that when I moved over to the tech world and people weren't doing this, it just seems nonsensical. Like, I didn't know anything other than what I knew. And I was like, and then I discovered the only B2B just loves to make things trackable, and they love to make things fit into these fancy tools because they pay tens of thousands of dollars for them. And it's like, you shouldn't be shoehorning your strategy into the tool. The tool should be shoehorned into the strategy. You've got to ask backwards. Because in tech, like when I was in insurance, like we didn't have a tech stack. I worked for a very small agency. You know, we had a budget of some shoestring and a prayer, right? So like and I'm an atheist, so that's nothing. So, you know, coming into the tech world, it was like, why are you all overcomplicating this? People are like, well, what's your social selling sequence? I'm like, I don't have one. People book on my first message.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it correctly, you shouldn't need the sequence. So like, and I never understood that. No one trained me this way, I would say, at least not on purpose. Before working in insurance, I made content for VR gaming communities, and I partnered with a bunch of brands when I was a teenager. My first job was at 13 or 14, I can't remember exactly, on social media. And that's how I got clients as a child, was just by finding things that just made sense. I think a lot of people naturally do this in their personal lives. When something's wrong in your life, you're just like, what's the next possible logical step? So it's just like, for some reason, we clock into work and we turn that off, and it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, it's like when we used to play, and now we can't play because play isn't. There's no benefit to it. How is it going to move our career ahead?
If you were even toddlers do this. A 4-year-old wants to build a pillow fort, right? What's the next step? Go get pillows.
Yep.
But it's almost like unlearning all of your first year of sales. I was in insurance sales as well, and you also learn when you go and show up to meetings in the evenings, because we didn't have the office, so we had to go to people's houses, and a couple people no show, and you're like, this sucks. So how do I fix this so this never happens again?
Yeah.
And so you're reversing. But all the stuff I learned in B2B, like it was like what you said, it was to justify the tech stack. And it also, it took the person out of the equation, which is kind of funny, because it's amazing what happens when you have a conversation.
Yeah, I think it's because they also want to like watch over you and make sure you're actually working. And it's like, okay, fine. You know what I'm doing day to day more than you used to, but I'm also producing less. So you shouldn't be getting data for data's sake. You should be getting performance. So and people go, what? I can't trust my employees to do that. Then you have some trust issues you need to unpack in therapy, or you're hiring the wrong people. So that's no amount of webinars and workshops will solve this. That's a you problem as a person, not as a professional.
Yeah.
What do you think, Morgan? I think Jacob has a really great question.
It was where I was going to go next, honestly. So, Jacob, you beat me to the punch here. Jacob asks, what's your strategy to find these relevant recent posts about the problem you solve? Because Jacob finds it hard to search the right keywords to uncover the right topics.
I've been there too.
Yeah.
So this is a hard thing. This is the hard part. So you got to put away all like the whole logic of like, I got to build a list in SalesNav. I don't build lists in SalesNav. When I was a BDR, every time I did that, my performance plummeted. So a lot of it was like, okay, I know my ICP is. My bosses, they know. Like, they trained me to know what my ICP is. So I need to go and find sales content creators on whatever platform where these people hang out on. This happened to be easiest on LinkedIn for me. And I would bookmark like those 5 to 15, depending on my bandwidth, of content creators. And I would go and check their posts on a regular basis. I would engage with them and like them because I wanted to trick the algorithm into working in my favor. And that just comes from, I think a lot of people forget, like I was in marketing, then in sales, and then in marketing. So I've always worked with a marketing first mindset, sales second mindset. So I was like, how can I game the algorithm in my favor so I can stop looking for this content? It just gets spoon fed to me. And as you do that over time, it gets easier to find this content on your feed because it'll be like half your feed by default. Then the other factor is why I work at Trender. Trender is creating the world's first social media search engine that solves everything I just said in seconds, where it took me months to do what I just explained. So when Joe Caprio introduced me to Betsy Billhorn at Trender, it was like a no-brainer. So that's why I work here, and that's why we have LinkedIn coming soon later this summer. There's my pitch. And look, and it made sense. It's also why I'm really good at influencer marketing. And if you're a company who wants a B2B influencer, my DMs are open. I do have a rate card. Question, I made it make sense.
One question I have that comes out of that: were you like how much time were you spending doing this? Because one thing I know, following influencers and commenting and liking can like take up some time. And
not with Trender, but yeah.
But for somebody who doesn't have it yet, or somebody who doesn't have the budget yet, or somebody who wants to
coffee, but okay.
Yeah, to punish themselves into learning the manual thing. Like, were you going through, and manually searching keywords in like LinkedIn search to find conversations? Or were you like containing yourself to mostly just the active in content creator accounts?
Yeah, so I tried the method of like searching for content based on keywords and while it was no more or less effective in booking the actual meetings, like the quality, the response rate and the quality of the meetings and the show rates were identical. It was just faster for me to lean on like the content creators that were just consistently producing content that was more often than not something that I personally, not something my company decided for me, but me personally felt confident in segueing from to our product. If I don't want to, if I sit there and I go, how the hell can I make this make sense from this post to our product in the meeting? And if I'm sitting there for like more than even 30 seconds, like that's a sign that you're trying to shoehorn something. So I just moved on to the next because it was like, I could probably, as somebody who used to do stand-up comedy for a living, I could probably figure out a way to do it, but it's not worth my time to do that. I'm not getting paid to do that. I'm getting paid to book meetings. So I realized that, yeah, there's like 15,000 ways I can go get that content. Because Trender wasn't a thing yet, this was the fastest way for me to do that without sacrificing quality. So and over time, like I mentioned, the algorithm will continue to play in your favor because the trick is not just to send that DM, it's also to like to engage in the comments with the folks that are there, even if they're not your ICP, because you never know who someone knows. I think people like forget, like I know some of the marketing leaders at Linden Labs, which is the creators of Second Life. If you're trying to get into VR, you should be DMing me. I've got connections galore at gaming publication companies. People forget, like, yeah, no, us B2B tech marketers can be nerds too. Right? So, and my partner, my best friend Kevin, his partner is like one of the leaders at a cosmetics and skincare company. It's a Fortune 500 company. Like, and he's just a nurse, right? So you never know who you know, right? And I love nurses. I'm not downplaying what they do, but the whole point is, don't think just because that person does X, Y, and Z that they don't know people who do all these other things. So, so therefore, I would never steer away from like, I would never just focus on just my ICP. I would focus on the people that my ICP was talking to and with. It's kind of like, this is going to sound, I hate comparing sales to dating, but sometimes it's true. When you go to a gay bar, and you're a gay man and you're trying to get another gay man, get your straight girlfriends to come with you and get them to become friends with the man that you're interested in as a way to vet and make that first ask for that date easier. It's the same thing I did on LinkedIn. I became friends with all of your friends, so you felt like the loser that didn't know me. So therefore, because they all loved me. So therefore, you would say yes to talk to me more than likely.
I love this. It's like intent on steroids, because you hear a lot of people like, well, I'm not going to name tech stacks to be fair, but like they have all these tech stacks and they're like, well, they looked at my profile or they did this and they did that. And they're trying to build context, But what you did, what I love, is you made it so simple. You're like, hey, I like this. You like this. We can probably have a conversation about this. And this person creates content on it all the time. So I'm guaranteed to come back every day, every second day max, and have great content for us to discuss. And because I know that comments spread versus DMs versus emails versus everything else.
COVID.
Yeah.
Just not in the US.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, not a thing.
You get the power of the algorithm working to your favor. So it's like, would I rather work smart or hard? And would I rather go and talk to just you or have the ability to get social proof by my comment getting liked by other people and spreading? No.
That's too obvious.
There's a hook. There must be a trick to this. There must be something.
Yeah. So, something that Jacob has an interesting question, which maybe we'll ask outright, and then I have a follow on. And by the way, for anybody who's joining us, Jacob isn't the only one who has to ask questions. So if you have other questions, ask them.
Mom, if you're watching, log off.
Yeah. So Jacob asks, what's your take on connecting with people and not doing any discovery, but letting them start seeing your posts and come inbound from the feed? So basically, instead of doing a personalized connection request and then immediately trying to book the meeting, what about connecting with people and then I suppose, nurturing them through content.
Got it. So there's a lot of different strategies to play here because it depends on what kind of meeting you're trying to book. No two meetings are created equal. So working in the insurance industry, I always focused on high intent meetings, which in the insurance world is not that much different than the B2B tech world. It just meant that there was some level of expressed interest. Whether it was outbound or inbound, there was a confirmed mutual interest in procuring that product. Not learning about it, but like getting it. Those are two very different things. These people know they need it already. They just need to shop around and get the thing that they need. Where in tech, I usually the happy medium that I personally prefer is that low to medium intent, where it's I am vaguely interested in learning more, and therefore I'm not necessarily going to buy, but I'm interested in hearing you out and learning more because you've made it make sense to me, and like at the very least, I've learned something, right? So I go and find people on LinkedIn. People on LinkedIn are people that typically want to learn. That's the demographic of the platform. That's why they're on the platform. People are on Facebook because they feel like they need to be on Facebook. People are on LinkedIn for that same reason. They're there because they want to be there. So I would find people that were like in those comments, they were hand raising, expressing that they were vaguely interested in this because no one complains about a problem they're not interested in solving. Right. So as long as as long as I had the intention, it's like the whole working backwards component, right? As long as I had the intention correct and I made it make sense, every single time we showed the product to somebody, one of two things happened. I love your product. Let me introduce you to the decision maker. Or I love your product. Let's keep talking. So so it's all about deciding what kind of meeting you want. That's the first factor in answering that question. It's focusing on that meeting. I don't think it's necessarily about marketing versus sales. I think that there is a category in the middle that isn't discussed much. As a marketer, like my career in my life has been mostly in the context of like community and social media and dark social and partnerships and influencer marketing. I worked in financial services, nightclubs, entertainment, VR, gaming, B2B SaaS, so restaurants. So I've worked in a lot of industries, and they all have like one thing in common, which is like you need that evangelism context, which is quite literally like just leveraging your personality and making friends at scale. It's why it's very hard for me to like answer questions like how much time do you spend doing this, because I like what I do and I just don't take jobs at companies or products that I personally am not interested in, because I couldn't do everything I'm talking about if I wasn't genuinely and thoroughly nerding out about whatever the hell it was I was doing. And I also have to genuinely love the audience too. I have a friend that she sells a product that she loves, but she hates the type of people that are in their ICP, because culturally she does not get along with them at all. And she tells me all the time, I should have taken your advice. It's not about loving the product. It's also about loving the ICP. So that's why I don't think it's about marketing versus sales. I think it's about marketing versus evangelism versus sales.
Good call.
Interesting. There's Tatiana, I believe your privacy settings don't let us see your name on our end, but Tatiana asks, one, this is a funny question because I think I know the answer, Evan. So would you say you spent more time on social than on cold calls?
Yeah. At Reprise, I made a whopping -3 cold calls. Yeah, I was that BDR that would like refuse to cold call, fire me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
like I
not
don't
for
care.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Even in insurance, I didn't cold call. They refused. It doesn't mean I won't pick up the phone. I just won't cold call.
And that's this follow on, which is interesting. And we hear this a lot, which is like, how do you communicate this to your managers in a way where they weren't like, you need to get back to working our sequences that we designed for you?
I don't work for managers like that. It's just that simple. And if you get a new manager, then you quit and you go work someplace else.
Is there?
It's harsh, but true.
I agree with you. Is there somewhere in the middle that even for your own sanity, you're like, this shit is working, I should keep doing it? Above the obvious of like, I'm booking more meetings. Is it because it's easier to book meetings? Like, what is your mental, like, you're always looking to get better. I see you all the time in comments, like learning and pushing yourself. So what are you looking for? What is your guide that you're actually getting better, that you're refining your craft?
Um, I so I specialize in top of funnel. Whether I'm a marketer, salesperson, or evangelist, that's where my forte is, right? So I use like how it progresses through the funnel after me as like a health benchmark of what I do, because while I'm paid to fill the funnel, and like every BDR or SDR should be, their pay should be primarily focused on the meetings booked. It shouldn't be focused on the progression through the opportunity to a chain. And if you disagree with me, please delete your LinkedIn accounts and unplug your internet forever. But because it's offensive to pay people based on things out of their control. However, that doesn't mean the SDR, the BDR, the sales rep should be ignoring that. They should be using that as a health check to know if, like, okay, this strategy, like the strategy might be great. If you're booking 50, 40, 60, whatever, like if you're noticing an increase in number of bookings, but you're noticing the close ratio is less than good, because okay, fine, your AE can't make the close ratio higher. Your job is just to give them more swings, right? So, if you're noticing that drop, just shift the direction of where you're going. Sometimes it's not the strategy, it's just the where, right? We targeted pre-sales and sales reps and sales leaders and marketing leaders and all these different types of job titles at Reprise, because at the time I was there, they were still trying to figure out who their the best first meeting was with. And I haven't worked there in a hot second, so I don't know if they've gotten enough data since then, so I can't speak for the results of that experiment. But I can say that was part of my job, was like, hey, Evan, we know logically, based on how businesses work, these are the people that could be interested in our tool. So part of your job is to figure out, like, okay, is it harder for me to book meetings in certain titles over others, or certain departments over others? And then what happens after I book those meetings? And then figure out which one made the most sense, which was the most meetings and the most progression. So take that logic, whether you're at an early stage tech startup like Reprise was when I started, or if you're at a Fortune 500 established company, that logic works everywhere. It's all about like benchmarking the amount of fuel going into the car and the MPG after, or whatever the hell they call it in Canada.
Yeah.
We won't go there. It gets too confusing. I can add like the different measurements up because they link together.
So in America, we can't do that because our public education failed us. And that says something, because I went to a private school. I went to private school, so that says something.
Oh man,
how'd you guys kill me? I love this because you gotta find your superpower. I will be honest, there are some people that are just good at cold calling. There are some people that are just good at emailing.
Play your aces, please.
There's a lot of people that write social selling in their job description and they suck at it because they treat it like cold emails and cold calls. And I think the one thing that when we first talked, you talked about social selling isn't every sales slammed together. Social selling is just social selling. It is a skill in its own. And if you hire people to do cold calling and emailing, you start them there, and then you try to just tag in social selling. This is ignoring every seller's natural ability. You have a superpower that you're just naturally better at than anyone else. But if you don't benchmark yourself and your manager's not doing the work with you to go and figure this out, you know what? You can just take lead and start tracking these numbers and be like, hey, when I go on cold call, I per connects, this is how many meetings I book, and then this is how often they close. This, when I go and book them on social, I get this many in this much less time or more, whichever it happens. Yeah. And this is how many close. It's going to be pretty obvious within what I find like 2 weeks to 3 weeks that you can see a pretty easy trend of, depending on your sales cycle and them closing.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was like within a month, I could start to do some health checks here. Yeah. And I also used to look at it over the course of a career, not over the course of a job. Because obviously, like when I went from one SDR role to another, it wasn't like I lost that skill set. It wasn't like like the blueprint
restarted everything.
And a lot of sales reps, that's what it's like. And maybe it's because I'm a portion of my income comes from my personal brand, whether it's like side hustles or influencer marketing or affiliate marketing. Like like the average person when they vet for a job, right? Like, okay, am I going to get paid well? Do I like my boss? Do I like the product? Do I like the ICP? Do I like my coworkers? Are the benefits good? Is there room for me to grow at this company? All the right questions to ask. And if it's a startup, what's the runway, right? All these questions are great to ask. But then there's like, okay, is this on brand for me? What about my followers? Is this product steering too far away from what my followers know me for? So I look at full-time employment no differently than an influencer marketer looks at a brand deal. So if Trender was a company that sold accounting software, and I use accounting software as somebody who is a freelancer, right? So I love the accounting softwares that I use. By the way, shout out the QuickBooks, but non-spawn. But I wouldn't work there because it would be so totally off brand. So it's not just about moving your blueprint and your strategies over from one role to the next. It's about, is this logo good for my audience? Is this logo on brand for me? Evan's the early stage tech startup, dark social selling, community marketing guy. I can't deviate from that. I have to, if I want to, it's just slowly over time. So when I went onto LinkedIn for the first time, I was fully diving into like tech sales and early stage tech startups. And over time, it's like tech sales, tech social selling, tech social media, tech community. Like it was slowly having to chip away at the block. So I look at it as the same way an actress or an actor looks at movies. I look at it the same way a musician looks at their content and their music videos. Every single thing I do has to be on brand. And that's the sign of a social seller.
I don't want to lose this thread really quick because I want to combine this with one thing you had mentioned earlier, which is sort of your, and I also agree with you. I don't know why there's sequences as it comes to like rolling this out and engaging with people. It's always confused me. Like, do we really need to systematize your calling, phone, connection, comment, profile view thing one after the other?
There's nothing human about that.
Yeah. So, and all we do it is for the tech stack, of course. It's not because we
got to
have
justify this bill.
Right. So how, like you had mentioned previously, you were finding these comments that were in your ICP. And then you were sending a connection request that said, hey, I saw you commented and blah, 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 blah. Would this be interested to you?
Yeah. It changed every single time, literally.
Yeah. Do you ever like engage with other accounts who maybe aren't that top tier? And then like, are you trying to intentionally get them to a meeting, or are you just sort of like engaging with others to see where it goes? Sort of what I'm thinking about is like in traditional sales, if you had an email sequence, we call that like lead nurturing, I guess.
Yeah.
And so are you
so where's
doing
the lead nurturing
nurturing in social selling? Like, and is that even worth our time, or is it just more like relationship and community building? Or I don't know. I'm interested to pick your brain a little bit on that.
It depends on what kind of role you're in. So like if I was focusing on enterprise, right? Obviously my company might go, here are some logos that we really, really want, right? So I might tailor everything I just said to like, okay, I'm going to find a post that I know attracts people that work at like these Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies. It's the opposite of going to the sales nav and finding people who work there. I'm finding posts that attract those people. And then I will go and make friends with literally every single person in the department. I don't care if you're the janitor or if you're the VP of sales. I am going to make friends of everyone inside and out, because I find that I would rather book 40, 50, 60 intro meetings at the same company with non-decision makers and build a fan base in a company. So therefore they can go to their boss 60 different times saying, we need this problem solved. I found a solution. So I literally use the power of eternal peer pressure. So therefore,
I love that, Jim.
So therefore, like that's my lead nurture, is I'm getting my prospects to do the nurturing for me.
Could you imagine being a fly on the wall in that meeting?
Yeah.
Who is this guy? He's everywhere.
Please,
where did you hear about him?
Stop booking meetings with the people that sign on the dotted line. Start booking meetings with the people that give that person a reason to sign on the dotted line. That could be their board. That could be their board. That could be their investors. That could be their coworkers. It could be their boss. It could be the people underneath them. It could even, I've even gone to like, if I wanted to get a meeting with Uber, I would go to Uber's website and I would go to find all the companies that use Uber and try to sell our product to them, and then go, hey, all of your customers are using our product and it's helping them. And obviously you trust your customers. So it doesn't even have to be internal. It could be using their customers. It could be using their competitors. It could it's all about inducing FOMO. That's lead nurture and social selling is about that.
Damn. Now that's some good shit right there.
Honestly, I'm gonna make a joke about this, but like when I was in high school, all my friends were teenage girls, and there is no one better to make you feel like you're missing out on something than a teenage girl on social media, or a gay man like myself on social media. So I took every single petty trick I did as a teenager to make someone feel bad about themselves, and flipped it into making them feel good about themselves.
Oh, I was wondering where you were going with that. I was
waiting for
like,
the
oh
punchline.
shit.
Yeah, it's all about taking that same logic and flipping it for the positive. And also scaring Canadians into thinking that I'm going to be an asshole online, because there's no such thing as a mean Canadian. Unless you're French Canadian, then you're just hysterical to me, and I love you. My ex is French Canadian, he's my best friend, so it's okay.
Okay. It's like, holy crap, we're just taking shots everywhere here.
Je parle français un petit peu, mes amis.
Oh man. So David had just asked, the non-DMs I've spoken with won't take a call. How did you get them to agree to a meeting? So basically, like, are you capable of getting to somebody to a meeting without sending them a DMs, or just like having conversation in the DMs, or are you gearing for that conversation in the DMs off of your connection requests and your comments?
So I don't know if David means DMs as a decision maker or DMs as direct message. So based
Good
on the
question.
context of this question, I think David's talking about decision maker.
Sure.
Because this is non-DMs. So like,
Yeah.
if you're saying non-decision maker, it's all about, it's changing the tone, right? So for example, if I'm trying to sell to an AE who's not the decision maker at Reprise, but their boss might be, or their boss's boss might be, I'll just kind of go in there and like, misery loves company. I'll go complain about the problem with them.
It is decision maker. Sorry about that, David.
You're good. Yeah, so that's kind of like the game plan, is like going in there and like, for lack of a better word, it's like bitching with them, you know, and like showing that you get it, right? And like and arming them. Like, listen, I know it's hell on earth trying to get your boss to buy something. And it takes a village, quite literally, as a gay man, village people, hello. So, but I'm like, but the least I can do is give you something to help you in your current job and make you look amazing to your boss and better than your coworkers, or take it to your next job, and impress them straight off the gate in your first 90 days, saying, hey, I'm not saying buy this, but I'm saying if you like being a sales leader, you should learn about this. So I literally give the non-DM, like the talk track to use before they even take the meeting with my AE. And sometimes I even sell like, hey, my AE hates that too. That's why she works here. That's why he works here. That's why they work here, because they're trying to solve that problem too. They agree. They know it sucks. And that's how it works. So so I don't talk to them the same way I talk to their boss.
I love that. And
you don't talk to a toddler the same way you talk to a 25-year-old. You get down to their level.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought we always have that trusted person, like that. You know, every company has that one person that when things go wrong, they get the call, and then it keeps going down the ladder, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite strategies was like, it's playing the guessing game. It's almost like you go to the mall and you're like people watching, and you're trying to figure out what they're talking. Like, you're trying to kind of read the body language. So you're like, in this org, who do you think is going to get the call? Who's actually trusted? How would this move through? And that's kind of my fun way of doing it. But I love the way you did it, because now how do we empower them to work its way up? How do we empower them to have the best conversation possible? That's all it is, a conversation. And I don't think it really matters unless it's like public versus private information, if it needs to happen in a comment or a DM. Yeah. But, when that person, then there's a lot of decision makers, and you have the right conversation and they feel empowered to have that conversation, you're not going to lose.
No, it's all about making it make sense. And like in the art of conversation at the end of the day, if this person is not clicking with me, for whatever reason, like I can tell they're disinterested. I'm having trouble connecting with this kind of person, just based on their colloquialisms and the way they communicate. Like, instead of stressing out about that, I just move on to the next. it's just like in a networking event, right? Like, you're not going to try to impress somebody that you're not getting along with. Like, you just go find somebody else at the networking event to talk to. It's the same thing in sales. I was like, you work at fucking Uber. There's like 500 people I can also talk to. I don't need to talk to you.
Yeah.
I've always hate that when it's like the account's dead. Why? Well, I went and talked to this one VP and they said no.
I was like, there's 25
You talked
VPs.
to one?
Right?
You know how many products Trender has bought after saying no 4 times prior?
Yeah.
Because they went to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And no, please don't prospect me right now. But the whole point is, I'm the easiest person to prospect to. I answer almost every single outreach. It is pathetic.
Oh gosh. Speaking of,
I was gonna
sorry.
go there too. No, you're
Speaking
going to the
of,
same place I'm going.
Outreach. Allie had asked, do you send a message with your initial request? As I understood, yes. And what's your like go-to messaging when you first reach out?
So yeah, always send a message, and I literally refuse to use anything that looks like it could have been automated, or it looks like it's like hyperly grammatically correct. I talk the way that I'm talking to you all right now. I write like I'm texting. I literally would go in my phone and like remind myself, like, how do I talk to my boyfriend? Because that's how I'm going to talk on LinkedIn. It's that simple. He responds. We've been together for 3 years, and I have 4 boyfriends. So, so I take that logic to how I type, and then I usually, there's like a loose formula. This isn't word for word, and feel free to make it your own terminology. But I always say like, hey, saw you commented on so and so's post. That's point number 1. About X, Y, and Z. Jog their memory. And if it's, don't ever do it if it's been like more than like 4 or 5 days, by the way. Pro tip. The response rate plummets because like I don't remember. So and then so hey, saw a comment on so and so's post about X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z being like a pain point, by the way, not just a generic topic, like about reps struggling with insert thing here. We're working on a product that solves exactly that. We would love to see if it makes sense for you, or at the very least, you learn that something out there exists for when you're ready to pull the trigger. I might change that phrasing if they're not a DM, I go, so like you can at least show your boss, it'll make you look great, you know. And like we can chat here. I can book a meeting with you. I can send you a video. What would you like to do? And if they choose not book a meeting, I do that. And then like 9 times out of 10, they end up asking for that meeting. I don't have to give it to them. And that's all about, by the way, only work at a company with a good product. That's the other thing too, because that won't work if the product sucks. And marketing has to have really good collateral. So, but that's how the messaging works typically. The only time I follow up is because a lot of people don't respond to that first message because of the way the inbox works, like if they accept it on their phone versus on the computer. So what I'll do like the next day is, or as soon as I notice that they've accepted, hey, thanks so much for just like, hey, just want to say thank you for connecting. By the way, I'm looking forward to seeing your content. Like something unrelated to my previous message. Or if they're active on LinkedIn like regularly, they're creating their own content, I might even make a joke like, hey, so happy I could flood your DMs like every other asshole on LinkedIn. Doesn't this DM inbox suck? I love to use the misery loves company play because everyone, regardless of personality, like loves to complain. We're hardwired as humans to complain. So I turn that complaint into a positive.
Nice. And Tatiana had asked earlier, so let's just like thread these together. Do you only leverage LinkedIn for your methods, or do you use other socials as well, like Reddit, Twitter, Insta, etc.?
Depends on the ICP. When I was at Reprise, it was almost exclusively LinkedIn. We did some Twitter, but when I say we, I mean me, because we played into our aces. Luke Scotton, shout out to him, amazing at email prospecting, by the way. Like he was on par with me, just different channel. So more proof to play your aces. But yeah, I only really used the LinkedIn when I was at Reprise. It would depend on the company, to be quite honest, and the product and the ICP. At Trender, we're everywhere because we're a social media search engine. We have to be on social medias. We have a curse. All these tech companies get to pick 1 or 2 platforms. We have to pick all of them. So once again, it all comes down to what platform you're on. It's kind of like and not trying to attack you, Allie, but that's one of the things that the sales industry needs to, sales profession needs to turn off is, where do I go to do this? Only you know the answer to that. And if you don't, and this is going to sound harsh, but if you don't know how to like pick up what I said, copy and paste it and apply it to the platform it needs to be on, if it's not LinkedIn, then you're not a social seller. Hire someone who is then.
We all have our superpowers.
I'm not a cold caller. Tom Slocum is a definitively amazing cold caller. So like, I believe that cold calling works, just not for me.
Yeah, I'm not a cold caller either. It's not how my brain works, and I don't know. I'd much prefer to do what exactly you've lined out today.
I tell my doctor to F off when they cold call me. So why the hell would I cold call a company?
Like what David Premier says, the sell the way you buy, basically. Yeah,
please tell me, somebody in the comments, if you bought something off a cold call.
Yeah.
Then my next question is, who hurt you?
Shots fired. Hot damn.
I like Will Allred when they were building Lavender. They started looking at like how he was looking at emails, how he was reviewing things, and he started to reverse engineer it for the other buyers.
Yep.
I think that's the most brilliant thing, because birds of a feather flock together. I don't know how many times I've frickin' said this lately, but like, if you prefer to have people reach out on social, that's probably a sign that you like social, so you should lean into social. But if you respond to your email all the time,
maybe it's that.
Unlike
also,
me.
Play to your aces, not just from a skill set perspective, but like from a niche audience perspective, right? Like Will Allred had a niche audience of like early stage tech sort of founders or scrappy entrepreneurs, because that's who Will is, right? People that were digital nomads, worked from home. They liked having control over the day, whether they worked for a company or owned a company. That's who Will is. That's on brand for Will, right? So Will just attracted people like that. And there's overlap with that and Lavender's ICP, right? So, with me, if you look at my pipeline versus Luke's pipeline, nearly identical number of meetings, completely different channels, same company, same product, same ICP, but my pipeline was almost always queer people, women, people of color. Why? Because they saw themselves in me and my content and the way I talked in my brand, right? And so when I worked in insurance, my boss quite literally, she's like, Evan, you're great at sales, you're great at marketing, you're gay as hell, and you're very well known locally in the gay community. We're going to get you ads in local gay newspapers. I'm going to pay for you to go to gay networking events. I'm going to pay for you to get something at Pride Fest. I'm going to give you business cards to give out when you're at a bar and you go meet some guy that owns a business, like play to the community niche personality levels of your employees. And it worked. So there's entire industry, like there's real estate agencies owned by gay people, of course, queer people, of course, that they seriously follow the migration trends of American queer people as a way to make money. So as a salesperson, I'm like, okay, not only do I have a niche professionally, I have a niche personally. How can I combine the two? I'm going to go find all the sales reps that are queer at these companies because they already love me for that reason. So getting them to love the product's going to be that much easier.
I think that's absolutely fantastic advice, but being in B2B sales, I think that's actually one of the hardest advice you can hear, because when you're in B2B, you lose yourself. You lose yourself to sequences, but like honestly, Evan, like a lot of the companies, when you're starting out, they want you to be nothing. They want you to be them. And so it's like, what is my 5 to 9? What do I enjoy doing? Who am I as a person? What will I not stand? What will I stand for? What does it mean to be me? And I think this is one of those like really meta conversations where you got to really dive deep. And if you don't do it, you'll never stand out, because you're just going to be another player. But even look at, if you even want to look at sports, the top paid players aren't the team because they're just all about the team. It's because they have a personal brand. They're authentic to who they are and they stand for it.
Yeah.
So what do you stand for?
I think I had a big, literally screaming match with a former employer where I was saying that I got caught saying on a webinar one time that I treat all the companies that I worked for, whether it's a contractor or I'm a full-time employee or I'm just doing a brand deal, whatever it is, they're my clients. I don't care if I'm W-2, from 1099. I don't care how they're paying me. They're my clients. And they go, oh, so you don't have the same loyalty or commitment as somebody who goes, I work for them. Like, no, I actually probably have more because I'm saying I am employed by me and my skill set and my personal brand. And you're buying my skill set, my services, my following, whatever it may be, my personality. So therefore, I'm actually saying that I'm going to be personally bothered if it doesn't work out. If I just work for you, like I'm just going through the motions of a cog in a machine. By calling you my client, I'm saying I'm taking ownership if this doesn't work out well. If I work for you, then the ownership's on you, actually. That's how that works, especially in at-will states in the United States. So I was telling this guy, I was like, I that's how I look at it. It also goes back into what I was saying earlier. I don't take jobs where I don't feel like it's on brand for me. And there are a lot of companies that I would love to work at, but I'm like, my audience doesn't want me to work there. So it's all about this balancing act of like my audience and my needs and career and desires as a professional and as a personal, like as a human being. So it's all about that balancing act. So that's why I always say, like, you can't take a sales rep that does emailing and cold calling and then shoehorn them into social selling. All this like woo-woo hallmark stuff that I'm saying right now is a part of the skill set to be a social seller. Ask Brittany Broski, a YouTube comedian influencer. Ask Whitney Cummings, who's a comedian influencer, one of the largest podcast audiences in the world. They're all going to tell the exact same thing I'm telling you. You need someone who's personal brand, content, social media, evangelism oriented. And that's seldomly the person who does cold calling and emailing. It can be, it just typically isn't.
And I will challenge that a little bit, just because the one of the things I get really annoyed with is everybody keeps telling me that personal branding is social selling. It's not. It's part of.
Exactly.
But the one thing that I'm pulling from this, and it was the same when I used to cold call, is the more of yourself that you show, not tell, the more people gravitate towards you. It doesn't matter if what platform is easiest for you to do that.
Yeah.
But people know it's, what is that, the branding thing that they do, Morgan, is you go and take like somebody else's brand and clear off their brands and see if they can read it and recognize who it's for.
Yeah. Scrape the logo and see if you can identify based on their headlines and copy. Yeah.
If you took your pitch, if you took your outreach, if somebody else that works with you all the time, if they went and like scraped it off, could you guys figure out who's who in the zoo just from how you talk? If you can't, that's a good sign that you need to lean in more on who you are to show, not tell. Because you can say in your summary all the time who you are. Evan, have you ever met somebody? Oh God, big pet peeve. I haven't thought about this one in a while. Back in the day when we used to meet people in person, but you would see you'd be talking to them for like a year on social, and then all of a sudden you meet them in person, and you're like, who the hell are you? Because they're right. You're like, what happened?
If anybody in the comments has ever met me in person, I get this all the time. Oh my God, you're even louder in person. That's the only complaint that I get.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, because I can get arrested for what I really want to say on LinkedIn. Yeah. That's the only difference. So, but no, I agree. I've had that happen at a few networking events since things have been reopening up, because in the land of no COVID ever existed here, right? So that's a joke, by the way, for the 3 people that aren't getting that in the comments. But that's incredibly annoying, and that's also the sign of somebody that is not. They might be able to get some like short wins, but it's not going to be sustainable. It's gonna F off. It's gonna hurt the brand that they work for, but the only person that's gonna hurt the most is themselves. And it might not mean that person's bad at doing everything we just said. It just might mean they're doing it at the wrong place. That's why I always go back to that. It needs to be on brand for you. And when I say personal brand, I'm not saying you got to be a content creator. You have to just like focus on growing your network. My boss, Les Yetton, he knows more people than I know. He doesn't create content, but he's got a strong personal brand. It has nothing to do with followers, right? So it just depends on like what is the goal you're trying to achieve. If it's social selling on LinkedIn, yeah, you might want to find people that are strong personal brands on LinkedIn. But if you're an insurance agency who's like, okay, I need someone who's good at networking at a boat show, yeah, probably doesn't mean shit if they have a following on social media. There's going to be good at networking events and know a lot of people, right? Yeah. So it's all about the definition of a personal brand.
Well, what a power hour today with you, Evan. I've learned so much. You've dropped some great insights. I haven't laughed this hard with one of our guests in a long time. You had some great hot
I
takes.
think you
Loved
need
it.
some funnier guests.
When, when this gets published on our podcast, we get to add the little E for explicit, which is always my favorite.
E for Evan and explicit.
A for
Great.
Evan and explicit. For
And P
everybody,
for please stop and turn it off.
yeah. For everyone who's joining us today, these are always recorded either here on LinkedIn at this event link or on the B2B Power Hour YouTube page. We do these Power Hours all the time. Every Friday, we have a live show. We bring on guests throughout the week. So thank you for joining today. Thank you, Evan, so much for your insight and your wisdom and jokes as well. It's been great.
You will all be getting my bill.
Yeah, can't wait. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye.